Sairamal, we welcome all the members to be part of Region 3 Sunday Devotional Program. I'm sure you all enjoy our special guests every week during this hour. Looks like the pandemic season is extending, and most of us can't wait to get back to our usual routines. Thinking about that, we want to know our SSE children's view on it because we want our SSE student to have to cultivate gratitude, compassion, tolerance, devotion, and faith. Also, we want to know how they are coping up their day-to-day life and how SSE program is helping them and how they apply Swami's teaching during this time. So we have our enthusiastic team consisting of SSE teachers and students from Group 3 and Group 4 volunteered to share their thoughts for us. This program will be moderated by Sister Kavita Gante, who is our SSE coordinator of Clearwater Sai Center, who was born and raised in USA as a SSE student, who holds Sai values and teaching close to her heart. By profession, she is an internal medicine physician and a medical director and volunteer her time in teaching SSE and other service activities and projects. Also, we have Sister Srilata as a moderator. She came into Swami's fold through marriage. Her love for his teaching and children led her to be a SSE teacher. She served as SSE coordinator and handled so many SSE projects at various levels. Currently serving as a SSE teacher at Atlanta Sai Center. Sairam sisters handling over the baton for the panel. Sairam.
Thank you, Chitra, for giving me this opportunity to host the panel discussion. At the outset, I would like to offer my humble pranams at the lotus feet of our dear Bhagavan. We humbly offer this Guru Sishya panel discussion at his lotus feet. In this panel, we have a team of 3 teachers and 6 students. The first teacher I would like to introduce is Tarun. Brother Tarun came to know Swami while he was in college at the University of Miami. Soon after, he went to visit Swami, who hosted him at his guest house for a few months, both in Parthi and Whitefield. Professionally, he is an MBA from Emory and is working as a consultant. He has been a SSE teacher for more than 20 years and is currently teaching at the Atlanta Sai Center. Next teacher we have is Shilpa Gadipati. Shilpa Gadipati came into the Sai fold at the age of 16. She has visited Puttaparthi and Brindavan many times over the years. She calls the Clearwater Sai Center her home, and here she is a Group 3 and 4 SSE teacher. She's a software programmer by profession, is married, and has 2 children. SSE helps bring her 2 passions together. 1, working on becoming a better person, and 2, interacting with kids. She believes SSE helps both the students and teacher connect to our inner Swami. And this connection helps one to tread the right path. The third teacher that we have in this panel is Dr. J Varanasi. Dr. J Varanasi was born and brought up in New York as a SSE child. He's a practicing interventional cardiologist and has had the good fortune to serve in Bhagavan's General Hospital as well as the super specialty hospital in Puttaparthi several times. He is a SSE coordinator and teacher of the Sri Sathasai Center of Greensboro, North Carolina, and who also held various office bearer positions in the Sai Center.
Sairam, now we'll begin with the student introductions. Students, if you could please tell us your name, your group, grade, Sai Center, and a special hobby or special interest, that would be super. Let's begin with Naya.
Sairam, my name is Naya. I'm in 11th grade and I go to the Atlanta Sai Center. I'm in group 4, and one special interest of mine is I like to play cello.
Thank you. Sharanya?
Sairam, my name is Sharanya. I'm a Group 3 SSE student. I'm in 8th grade. I go to the Clearwater Sai Center, and a special interest of mine is playing piano.
Thank you. Ananya?
Sairam, I'm Ananya. I go to the Atlanta Sai Center and I'm in Group 3 and am in 9th grade. And one of my special interests is playing tennis.
Sai Priya?
Sairam, my name is Saipriya. I'm in group 4 in 10th grade.
and I love writing fiction poetry. Neil?
Sairam, my name is Neil. I'm in grade 9. I go to group 4 in Clearwater Science Center, and a special interest of mine is playing football.
Rahul?
Saram, I'm Rahul. I'm in group 4. I'm in 12th grade and I go to the Atlanta Sci Center. A special interest of mine is music.
Wonderful. Great to have you all here today. Now let's be joined by our wonderful gurus and students, and let us see what these seasoned gurus and students have to say. Sairam, Sister Shilpa, over to you for the first question.
Sairam. Thank you, Sister Kavita. Sairam, Rahul.
Saram.
Hope you and your family are staying safe during this pandemic. My first question is regarding this topic. The pandemic has affected all of us in some shape and form, to some more than others. Our lives have changed for the foreseeable future. My question to you is two-part. First one, how has Swami's teachings helped you during COVID-19? And the second, what tools do you use to stay positive?
Thank you. That's a great question. But to answer your first question, how has Swami's teachings helped you during COVID? So Swami always says to stay positive. He whatever he does, there's reasoning to it. So I think the most important thing is to keep that in mind at all times. So when there's reasoning to it, we can only think of the positive sides of COVID. So for example, because of COVID, school has been online and everything, and especially trying to balance music, tennis, college applications, and school, time management has been extremely hard for me. And I know that if I were to go to school in person, there would be a lot of time that I would be taking out of my day to go and everything. So everything being online, one positive way that I can look at it is that I have a lot more time. My time management has been a lot better ever since the start of COVID. So I think the most important thing is just to stay positive, mindful, and manage your time. To answer the second part of the question, what tools do you use to stay positive? With everything going on, I've been very stressed lately. So, of course, I've been trying to do some of my favorite things. So some of my favorite hobbies consist of singing, playing harmonium, and playing tennis. So anytime I am stressed, to keep myself positive, not get in a negative mindset, a lot of times I do my namasmaran to Swami at the altar. And that makes me feel in such a better mood. I feel a lot more positive than I would normally. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul. Baba says time wasted is life wasted. I'm happy to hear you're using your time effectively and maintaining a balance between school and extracurricular activities. As a teen, I know social interaction is important. How are you doing this? How are you maintaining social contact with your friends?
Yeah, I completely agree. As a teenager, especially being used to going to school every day, I definitely do miss the social interaction part of it. But one great thing about tennis is that the court is extremely big, and especially in singles, you can play the whole sport completely social distance. So I play with lots of different people, and I just catch up with them while playing tennis so that we keep our distance as well.
Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
is smart, and you're being socially responsible. Sairam.
Thank you.
Sairam. Thanks, Rahul. Next, I have a question for Naya. Sairam, Naya. So I wanted to ask, how does being part of Swami's organization affect your ability to fit in your school and your local community?
Sairam. So, being part of Swami's organization helps me fit in at school and local communities because I feel like Swami's message teaches you how to live your life and be a good person. So, you can know how to make the right types of friends and surround yourself with the right types of people. And basically, this affects the way you fit in by allowing you to choose the right people to hang out with and those that would be those that would reflect similar values as you and won't ask you to compromise what you have. So in the end, you end up making a community that you naturally fit into and are able to spread and reflect the 5 human values. Because when you learn about and when you practice reflecting the 5 human values, it makes you attract the right type of company and learn to be strong enough to, reject bad influences. Um, so you end up automatically having a community to fit into. And then I also feel like Swami's message really helps you learn how to serve properly, to become a good member of your local community, and how to exemplify traits such as service and leadership. And that's really what it means to fit into your community when you have these traits.
All right, very good. Thank you. Yeah, I agree. Finding good company is very important, as you described very nicely. Thank you, Sairam.
Sairam.
Sairam Ananya, how are you?
Good, how are you, Saram?
Good. So I have a very socially contexted question here for you. Have you faced discrimination in school and in social settings? And if yes, how did you apply Swami's teachings in that context?
Thank you for the question. So yes, I have been discriminated against in school, attending a school where the cultures aren't quite as diverse, say as an urban area. And it took me actually a long time to kind of come to an understanding that their discrimination wasn't because of any personal malice towards me, but instead of their ignorance clouding their judgment, their words, their thoughts, and that I couldn't be in a position to hold anything against them, but instead it was my duty to help them and educate them on my culture, my background, and where we're from.
Astute. I like the way you try to understand where they're coming from. That's a very astute quality, and it kind of reminds me of, well, context of Jesus when he actually said, Father, forgive them for they do not what they do, don't know what they do. So very wise coming from you. Thank you.
Yeah.
The next question I have is, again, more of a peer pressure kind of question, again, in context of your daily lives. So hypothetically, I'm going to throw this situation at Neil and Shranya. So let's a friend of yours comes up to you and say, hey, look, I've got an iPhone 12. Isn't it cool? How do you react to that? And also, you have an iPhone 8. So how would you react to that? How would you handle that situation, Neil?
Um, First of all, I would assume that he was probably like joking about it, and like not like try to personally attack him or be mean to him or try to hurt his feelings. Because Swami once said, help ever, hurt never," and I really don't want to be hurting his feelings. So I would probably tell him, I guess that is a cool phone and all, but like I'm probably gonna be upgrading next year, so yeah, that is why I have an iPhone 8, and I'm pretty satisfied with my current device right now. So yeah, and if he like still continues with it, then I'm probably gonna like go ahead and like find another friend or something, because at that point it's kind of too far. So yeah, that would be my response.
Yeah, good response. Basic question, I guess, to ask is for yourself, right? Do I really need a phone, or do I need a new upgraded phone to be realistic? Sharanya, how would you answer that question?
Thank you for the question. So in this situation, my immediate reaction would be to say, I don't mind having the phone I have. Um, After saying that to them, I wouldn't go further. I would simply just move on with my day. I don't think there's anything else that I could apply in that situation with still using psi values. One of Swami's teachings actually is having a ceiling on desires, which basically means that you need to have a limit on your desires and you can't expect to have absolutely everything. I wouldn't get angry with them saying that because I'm happy with the phone I have a functioning phone, I don't really need all the features. And phones are upgraded every year. So eventually every phone will become an old phone. And the same applies in other situations with different objects. And specifically during that moment, I would expect that I'd have a ceiling on my own desires. Swami also says that you have to be grateful for what you have. And even though that can be difficult to enjoy what you have sometimes, with peer pressure like that, it makes you think about what you have to do and not what you should do. But in this specific situation, I don't think I'd be as influenced to change my thoughts.
Very good. And I think you also mentioned that kind of that quality of contentment, being content with what you have, not always jumping on the new thing. So wonderful. Thank you.
Sairam, so I have a question for Rahul. Um, so Rahul, let me ask you, when facing fear or anxiety, how do you deal with it?
Sam Janko. So for me, when I'm facing fear, anxiety, or something, I really feel the best key for me is that I try finding something I really enjoy. Once I find something that I'm very passionate about, I feel when you are stressed, when you do that thing, it really helps you a lot. For example, during school can get extremely stressful sometimes. So in the middle of my break, sometimes I sing to Swami. Sometimes I'll go out and play tennis. Sometimes I'll take a nap because these are all things I enjoy naturally. The second it becomes something a bit more foreseeable, something a bit more competitive, I think that fun may be lost at a certain point. So I think when something is a true hobby and you're really passionate about it, when you're facing fear, stress, or anxiety, when you do this thing, it definitely does help me a lot personally.
All right, thanks, Rahul. How about Naya? Any thoughts on the same question? So when facing fear or anxiety, how do you deal with it?
Hi, Ram. So I like to do this thing where I take mentally a list of everything that Swami has given me and really just appreciate all my blessings because I find that really grounding. Um, and when I have fear and anxiety, usually I can do that to put things into perspective. Um, that little exercise really helps me feel calmer and it soothes any fear or anxiety because it just makes you realize that Swami has given us so much and everything has a purpose. So if you realize what he's given you, you realize you can do anything and all the tools you have are right there.
Yeah, definitely. Gratitude is always it's always a good thing to keep in your mind. Any other specific teachings, Naya, that you think about in those kinds of situations?
Well, specifically, I also like to do, I like to chant Gayatri Mantra because that repetitiveness and, the divine message, it's very good for me to just calm down a little bit and help me with any fear or anxiety I have.
Wonderful. Rahul, how about you? Any specific teachings you might follow in these situations?
I mean, Swami has always said, why fear when I am here? Right? So I think it is most important that we keep that in mind. If something happens, whether we may not think of it at the time like that, it really does happen for a reason. Whether it is for good or bad, there's still reasoning behind it. And Swami is there with us no matter what. He wouldn't let any harm happen to us in the long run. So I think that is what we have to keep in mind, and he is there if we need to talk to him or let him know anything.
Wonderful. And one follow-up question for you, Rahul. Do you share your feelings with friends or family or even Swami?
I actually share my feelings with my friends, family, and Swami. But for me, it is completely dependent on the situation. For example, if I am ever feeling like lonely or something, I would talk to my friends about it. If I'm ever very stressed about grades, I normally go to my parents and talk about it because they know how to talk me out of it and think about the long run, think about the future and how what I'm doing now will help me. But if I'm worried about an upcoming test that I have a current day or in the future, I normally pray to Swami and I ask him for two things. Number one, the best grade I can get, and number two, the grade that I really deserve. Thank you.
All right, that's wonderful. Naya, same question. Any thoughts about sharing your feelings with friends or family or Swami?
Yes. So I, like Rahul, it depends on the situation. I like to share with everybody, depending on, whatever the problem is. But one consistent is Swami because he is, your friend and your family. So talking to him really can help with anything I would deal with. And usually it'll work itself out because he gives you everything you need. Um, and he's also someone that's always with you. You always carry Swami inside of you. So I feel like that really helps to just talk to him anytime.
All right, thank you, both Naya and Rahul. I'm sure that is a very helpful perspective for other group 3 and 4 students who are listening to this meeting. Thanks for sharing, Sayam.
Why fear when I am here? A really important message for all of us to remember during these times. Thank you, Rahul, for sharing that. My next question is regarding high school. High school is demanding. Homework, extracurriculars, service activities, all of these take up a lot of time. What motivates you to attend SSE every week, even though it's virtual? Neil, would you like to take this first?
Yeah, I agree. High school is quite demanding, like staying up late nights, completing assignments, all that stuff. And it is quite important for you. And I see SSE in the same light. It really helps you like shape your future and like who you are. It provides essential values that you can learn, like leadership and things like that. Like recently we had like a class about leadership, and I could really see myself using most of the skills that we had learned during that class. It was about like how to be a good leader, and yeah, it all seemed like pretty relatable to like how to like later adulthood life, and like it could really help me to be more successful. And yeah, and the way I see it is that it's basically a necessity, just like school. And yeah, that's my take on it.
Thank you, Neil. I'm so glad that you see SSE, the values that you learn in SSE will help you succeed in life. Thank you for sharing that. Sai Priya, the same question. Can you share your thoughts?
Of course. While a high school can be demanding and extracurriculars can take up quite a bit of time, SSE offers this sense of calmness and peace that's just really wonderful to experience. And what's also wonderful to experience is the feeling of joining up with the people I've grown to know at the Sci Center and learning with them, advancing my SSE knowledge to become a better person overall. And I do this by learning different values, by learning about leadership, etc. And in addition to this, I also think the activities we do in SSE are also a fun way to sort of advance this SSE knowledge. So I really enjoy that as well.
Thank you, Sai Priya. We as teachers too, whatever may be going on in our lives, the minute we sit down to think about a lesson plan or come to the class, we experience a sense of calmness too, the same thing that you guys experience while you're in a class. So I think this is a mutual feeling. Rahul, can you share your thoughts on this question?
Sam, to me, what SSE teaches you is nothing comparable to what school teaches you. School can teach you core academic classes, but SSE teaches you spiritual values. So those you can only learn from SSE. And to me, there's 24 hours in a day, more than 160 hours in a week. And to take 1 hour out of my week to try to be a better person, to try to work on these values, I would be willing to sacrifice 1 hour every week. I would sacrifice much more than that even if I could, because the amount that I am receiving, I feel, is far more worth than that 1 hour. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul. It is heartening for me to see that all of you believe SSE is important and that SSE helps you succeed in life. Thank you.
Okay, Sairam. So I have a question for Tarun Uncle. My question is, what made you want to become an SSE teacher? And was it a message from Swami or an experience? What really prompted you to embark on this special journey?
Thanks, Naya. Very nice question. And I think indirectly it was a direction or message from Swami. We were following Swami when he was heading to Kodaikanal one summer, again in '83. We were following him in a bus behind him. And a number of places he would stop. He would get out of his car and he would go into the bus where the students were. He would ride a little bit with them. Then he'd get out of the bus and he would get into the car. So this happened 2, 3 times. I mean, that just showed how close he wanted to be with the students, with the young people, how his heart just follows them. And even in darshan, I mean, you always see him staying in connected to the students, be it scolding them, be it talking, joking with them. He's always making that connection, right? So the importance of young people and their growth is so dear to heart to Swami. And that's kind of what drove me. He's putting so much of his energy into the youth, and um, so that's has prompted me. Plus, there's other benefits to me as well. When I prepare for a lesson for you guys, I actually have to think about it, right? So it's reinforcement of Swami's message, and then sharing it with you guys and learning from you back and forth. That's a great experience. So it kind of builds on that. So thank you for asking.
Thank you. Sounds like it's great to know we have a mutual learning relationship. Thank you for your answer, Sairam.
Sairam J. Uncle, I have a question for you.
I
was wondering, it's really important to keep a work-life balance. And when you do keep a work-life balance, how do you implement Sai values?
So that's a very interesting question. Thank you. So the term work-life balance, I think that implies that, we can find the perfect way to divide our time, either between work and home, or, if you're a student, between school and extracurricular activities. And that perfect balance is what's going to make us happy. I think that's what we're all trying to find. But I think work-life balance is partly about time management, but it's not just about how we divide the hours in the day. Maintaining a work-life balance, it's also about staying happy and healthy in both areas, right? We need to be happy and healthy to function at work or school or, more fun places like the tennis court or playing the cello or the piano like some of the students do, who are on this call. So I think for a group 3 or 4 student, balance may be about schoolwork versus social life, and again, the other extracurricular activities. But for me specifically, balance is between working long hours, spending time with my wife and kids, and also finding time to exercise to stay healthy. So, if any one of these aspects becomes stressful or difficult, the other areas certainly can suffer. So, for example, if I have a lot of stress at work and I bring that stress home with me, that's going to have a negative effect at home. And conversely, if I had some stress outside of work and I bring that to work, it can hurt my performance at my job. So Swami has said before, the mind is the key to health and happiness. So again, the mind is the key to health and happiness. So, I think as we talked about earlier, particularly in these times with COVID-19, we do need to manage our time, but we also need to manage our mental stress. And when we can do this effectively, we can be physically healthy and we can be happy as well. If not managed well, though, persistent mental stress can easily disrupt our lives at home or at school or at work. So imagine if I take a week off from work But instead of relaxing, I spend the time worrying about all the work that's piling up for me, and that'll be there when I get back, right? So I haven't really used my vacation time well, even though I set aside some time, to create a work-life balance. I see this in my patients every day. Many of the people who have heart problems, they tell me about their mental stress, and that may be related to their work or maybe related to their families. And it reminds me of a quote from Swami. Swami says, the main causes of heart trouble may be said to be hurry, worry, and curry. So in other words, mental stress and eating the wrong foods can actually make us sick. So to your question, we do need balance. To stay healthy, Swami recommends regular exercise and a healthy diet, but also less worrying. All of us can be affected by worry, stress, anxiety. Even SSE kids who do very well in school can have issues with anxiety and stress. So I think of a few of Swami's teachings to help with anxiety. And these are things that I think about to try to maintain balance. So first, try to repeat his name mentally, maybe in the form of a bhajan, silently in my head. The second would be that, remember that Swami is the real doer and I'm just his instrument. So whatever situation I may be in, the result is up to Swami. I just have to do my best and leave the result to him. Third, practicing mindfulness. So focusing on my breathing to reduce worry, just trying to be in the present moment, not worrying about what's going to happen in the future. Fourth, as Rahul said before, thinking positive. Don't think bad things about yourself. Try to always stay positive. And the last thing I'll mention is just have faith that Swami will not give me a challenge that I can't handle, right? So if it's put before me, Swami thinks I can handle it. So I just want to share a picture with you at this point, and hopefully you can see my screen. And so this is a picture that was taken when I was 16. So about some of the students on this call are about the same age. So it's probably hard to tell, but that's me. And I'm trying to hand a letter to Swami. So during this trip, we were lucky enough to be called for an interview. And there were a couple of things that Swami said during the interview that really relate to this discussion today. So one of the devotees, he told that she worried too much, and then he held up his right hand in the familiar Abhayahasta pose, and he said, "This is the don't worry hand." Then later on in the same interview, he told me, as a 16-year-old boy, he told me that I had a monkey mind and I had bad thoughts. And I can tell you that as a 16-year-old, I was not at all thinking about the state of my mind or anything. I was thinking about school and thinking about the world. But I think the message to me was that really it's never too early to start getting rid of negative thoughts that we may have. And really that will help us in all aspects of our life. Thank you, and Sairam.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Jay, for sharing that wonderful picture. It took us back to Puttaparthi. My next question is on leadership. This is a topic that I'm passionate about. And this is a question for you, Ananya. So Swami says, I want you to be leaders to protect the world. What kind of a leader do you see yourself to be? The second part to it is, how has SSE helped shape that view of yourself?
Thank you for that question. I see myself to be a service-oriented leader, and it's really essential to me that I never believe that I'm more important or greater than anyone, regardless of their position. And Swami's teachings have really taught me that no matter what one does, how little or small, our life would just completely cease to function without their help. His teachings have helped me stay humble and grounded through the few leadership positions I've been blessed with. such as student council president or beta club president. And I think that SSE's core value is help ever, hurt never, as we've all heard. And I feel that as a leader, it's extremely important to me to prioritize that.
That's great. I think you see everyone around you as Swami, and that's the reason why, you treat everyone like how you want to be treated. That's awesome. So all of us have leaders who inspire us. Who's your inspiration?
I would probably say my parents. I know that's a bit cliche, but how much they sacrifice for me and how much work they put into me, taking me to school or driving me to extracurriculars, and how they check up on me. I really aspire to be more like them on to each passing day.
That's awesome. I think the sacrifices that our parents do for us are unending. Thank you, Ananya, for sharing that.
Wow, and I really agree that our parents are really good leaders and especially a good role model for us. But Shilpa Auntie, what are some good ways that you would take Sai leadership values in teaching and implement them in the different stages of life?
Sairam Rahul, thank you for asking this question. So many of us think leadership is something outside of us. We think it is mostly connected to leading people. Baba beautifully clarifies this. Leadership is a spiritual journey and it begins with you, the individual. Let's look at some of the Sai leadership values and teachings. First and foremost is the essence of leadership that Baba gave us, the 8 words: to be, to do, to see, and finally to tell. To put this into perspective, think of the iceberg. How much of the iceberg do you see?
You only see the top portion of the iceberg.
That's right. You probably only see 10% of the iceberg. The rest of it is below the surface of the water. Similarly, when you apply this to leadership, the 10% above the water is your skill. The 90% below is your character. So as you can see, to be is the most essential teaching that we need to put into practice. To be is our character, and this implementation can begin right from pre-SSE and go on until we are alive. To be is our character, and Baba has given us the 5 human values: truth, right conduct, love, peace, and non-violence. Reflect. Am I following these human values in my day-to-day interactions? The next characteristic I want to talk about is selflessness. Baba lays a lot of emphasis on this leadership value. The many projects and tasks that Baba has taken up and accomplished are an indication of his selflessness. Any leader who is selfless is bound to achieve the impossible. To this, think beyond yourself. See, what can you help around in the house, which will then lead to the community you live in. Anytime you face an adversity, instead of being bogged down by it, you turn it into something positive. For example, Michael Jordan, considered by many the greatest basketball player of all time. Do you know he was cut from the varsity basketball team in his sophomore year? So there's no one playbook that says do this at this age to become a good leader, but work on yourself and think of the greater good, and you will naturally be looked upon as a leader. Sairam.
Saram, I really like how you incorporated the Michael Jordan part. Michael Jordan is now known as the greatest of all time, and if not the greatest, one of the greatest of all time. And I didn't know that he was really cut from his varsity basketball team in the 10th grade. So to know that he just kept aiming for a much higher goal and he eventually got there. So I really think that is very inspiring. Thank you.
Sairam, Everything was just so beautiful, very beautiful insights that truly come from the heart. So I'm sure many people can relate to what you've said today and also can benefit from some of the tips that you've given, both children and adults. It was really wonderful. I have one final question for all of you. How do you maintain your spiritual connection with Swami in your daily life? I'll go ahead and call on names as I see them up here on the screen. Sairam, Ananya?
So, first and foremost, prayer, of course, the daily prayer. But I think also just by helping and serving others, it strengthens your bond with Swami because you really know that you're carrying out his message of what he wanted.
Very nice. Thank you. Sai Priya?
I, of course, agree that prayer is definitely a way to establish that spiritual connection. And I also believe that even just thinking about Swami also nurtures that connection between you and him. Because when Swami is in your thoughts, Swami becomes part of your life and sort of guides you on a path.
Sairam, beautiful. Just thinking about Swami is also a sadhana. Rahul?
Saram, so I've been working a lot recently on trying to keep Swami like more into my daily life, acting like Swami is there with me 24/7. So that is how I try to incorporate my spiritual practice. But other than that, I do pray every morning and I do my practice of Namasmaran every day. Thank you.
Sairam, you're a very high achiever, 24/7. We should all strive for that as well. Thank you. Sister Shilpa.
Sairam. So for me, in the morning, I listen to the Radio Sai program. So that sets the tone for the day. During the day, my work, I multitask listening to Radio Sai bhajans and talks. And before bedtime is my one-on-one time with Baba. Of late, I've started meditating. The kids join me for a little bit. I reflect and think of the day. But anytime during the day, be it watching a dance performance, be it listening to a song, going out, walking, or driving, you feel the sensation that he's with you, he's around you. These are the unscripted moments where, you truly feel his presence. Sairam.
Sairam, I love how you always try to find Swami everywhere and how you try to sense him. Thank you. Brother Jay.
Siam, thanks. Yeah, I think what I try to do is really maintain a conversation with Swami throughout the day. And definitely there are times, during work or other activities that conversation is interrupted. But when I can get back to that conversation, then I know my mind is focused on Swami and he becomes the center and the guide for everything. So that to me is the simplest way I can do it because I can do it anywhere. I don't need any other resources other than just my own memory. Thank you, Sarah.
Sairam, thank you. I love that. No matter what happens in life, refocus to Swami. Refocus to Swami. That's the answer to everything. Wonderful. Brother Tarun.
Sairam, quick story. So when I was young, like you guys, I was volunteering at a hospital and an emergency room, and there was a blind patient who needed food. So I went ahead and got food for him and I fed him. As soon as I finished feeding him, there was this beautiful smell of jasmine, Swami's smell of vibhuti in the room. And I was asking all the nurses, do you smell that? Of course, they didn't, but it was an immediate sign from Swami that awareness, right? And Swami even told Dr. Drucker once, he said, when you think of me, I think of you. And when I think of you with all my love. So it's a matter of us being aware, right? And thinking of him. He's immediately there. He's the presence. As far as daily routines, I mean, I do my suprabhatam and meditation in the morning, and I try to think of him throughout the day. Basically, every hour, kind of clockwise, I, can't think of all the time, but on the hour I'll think, Swami, thank you for this day. Thank you for this breath. Thank you for loving friends and family and taking care of everybody. That's another connection point. And then, like Rahul, music. Music is another point for us, and singing bhajans and that side. Sairam, thank you.
Sairam, thank you for sharing that wonderful experience, and a tip to at least remember Swami at the top of the hour if we forget in between.
Right.
Naya?
Sairam. So, ideally, prayer is the best way, but sometimes I find it hard to remember every morning or every night, especially if my mind is like busy with thinking about something else that I'm going to do for the day or something that happened during my day. So, I find that having like the best spiritual connection is when you think about him all the time, which is also hard to do. So what I like to do is I try to remember Swami during like good things that happen to me and bad things that happen to me, because that way I can thank him for the good things and turn to him for assistance during the bad times. And that way you can have like a constant connection, and it's like a two-way thing. Instead of only asking for blessings during bad things that happen, you also thank him for the good things. And that's ideally how I like to maintain my spiritual connection.
Thank you, Naya. That was beautiful. I love how you focus on thinking about Swami all the time, not just when you're sad or mad, but when you're happy, right? We should do it all the time. You're absolutely right. Sairam. Neil.
For me, like prayer is quite an important aspect. Like it's been a family tradition to like pray at like sunset. So yeah, I do pray to like Swami every single day at sunset. Not only that, whenever I'm like going through a trouble or having to make like a big decision, I would like think how would Swami advise me? Like I would have my inner voice in my head to like switch to what Swami would say and like his advice or like any quote or anything that I remember and how he would deal with it, because that's usually like the best way, and that's how I connect with Swami.
Sairam, Neil, I think tapping into that inner voice is most important to life, because he's always guiding us in that way. And I think SSE students have a big advantage in that regard, because they start learning how to have Swami with them all the time in their young years. Thank you. Sharanya.
Sairam. So I think sometimes it's easy to drift away from Swami or feel like you're drifting away from Swami with school, stress, negativity. So what I like to do throughout the day, every day, is pray to Swami. I think that's a great way that you can always stay connected, always stay tethered to this guided path given by Swami. And I know that he's always with me, even if I feel like I'm drifting away a lot. An example actually is the other day I was having like a lot of trouble sleeping. So I remembered suddenly I have the Radio Site app on my phone. So I opened my phone and I clicked on the app and I found something that said the Gayatri Mantra 108 times. So I clicked on that and I was actually able to fall asleep before it ended. And I think that was a way of Swami showing me that he was there when I needed him. So.
Sairam, Sharanya, thank you. Swami's always giving us the answers. And that's a good technique for many of us who have trouble sleeping. Children, adults, everybody. Listen to Swami on Radio Sai. Thank you. Sairam, this was certainly an enlightening discussion, and I'm very humbled by what I heard today. I would like to recap some points our gurus and students pointed out today. First, we began with a question on the current pandemic, COVID-19. School and work can be stressful, but to reduce that stress, we need to think of the positives. Focus on a hobby or interest and divert your mind to relieve your stress. We talked about discrimination, any sort of discrimination against you. Do not think of it as a personal malice against you. Realize that it is ignorance clouding one's judgment. Try to see the divine in the other person. We had the iPhone scenario under the subject of sealing on desires, where we learn to explain to our friends our thought processes and how we are grateful for what we have. We discussed ways to tackle fear and anxiety. Reach out to family and friends. Think of things you are happy for. Chant the Gayatri Mantra until you become calm. Don't forget there is a reason for everything and that Swami is always there. Remember what Swami says, why fear when I am here? We talked about work life and home life balance, and having that balance is the key to a healthy and happy life. Swami says our true nature is Ananda. Repeat Swami's name in your head. Do your best and leave the rest to Swami. Know that Swami won't give you something you cannot handle. Swami is the real doer. You are just the instrument. SSE teaches a lot of values to be successful in life, and it helps you gain confidence. It also teaches you how to be a good leader, and that a leader should be humble, kind, caring, and be able to practice equanimity. It provides a sense of calmness, security, and peace. Finally, during this pandemic, we need to practice all that we have learned in SSE classes and think of Swami 24/7. Sai Ram. Over to you, Chitra.
Saram, thank you, Kavita and Srilata, for the nice summary for today's program. It was wonderful discussion shared by our regional teachers and students. If all of us aim for the equanimity, no pandemic will affect us. I am sure all can relate to this topic with our students. Now, please enjoy the bhajans and have the blissful rest of the day. Sairam.
ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वप्रचोदयात् 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 ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वप्रचोदयात्। 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 ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वप्रचोदयात्।
जय गणराया श्री गणराया जय गणराया श्री गणराया जय गणराया श्री गणराया जय गणराया श्री गणराया मंगल मूर्ति मोरया। अष्टविनायक मंगलदायक मंगलमूर्ति मोरया। अष्टविनायक मंगलदायक मंगलमूर्ति मोरया। सिंदूर बदना पंकज चरणा। सिंदूर बदना पंकज चरणा। सिंदूर बदना पंकज चरणा मंगल मूर्ति मोरया। सिंदूर बदना पंकज चरणा मंगल मूर्ति मोरया। जय गणराया श्री गणराया। जय गणराया श्री गणराया मंगलमूर्ति मोरया। सिद्धि विनायक मंगलदाता। अष्टविनायक मंगलदायक मंगलमूर्ति मोरया। सिंदूर बदना पंकज चरणा। सिंदूर बदना पंकज चरणा मंगलमूर्ति मोरया। मंगलमूर्ति मोरया। मंगलमूर्ति मोरया। मंगलमूर्ति मोरया। जय गणराया श्री गणराया। महोनाथ नाथ भगवान। Shama Sundara Gana Shama Sundara Bansi Gare Krishna Kanhaiya बंसी दरे कृष्ण कन्हैया तुम ही मेरे माँ बाप भैया तुम ही मेरे माँ बाप भैया देवकी तनया हे नंदलाला देवकी तनया हे नंदलाला दीन बांधवा द्वारकनाथा दीन बांधवा द्वारकनाथा राधा हृदय निवासा हरे कृष्णा राधा हृदय निवासा हरे कृष्णा मधुसूदना मुरलीधरा मधुसूदना मुरलीधरा सतीश्वरा सत्य साईश्वरा ईश्वरा सत्य साईश्वरा गणशमा सुंदरा बंसीधरे कृष्ण कन्हैया तुम ही मेरे देवकी तनया हे नंदलाला दीन बांधवा द्वारकनाथा राधा हृदय निवासा हरे कृष्णा मधुसूदना मुरलीधरा सत्य साईश्वरा ईश्वरा सत्य साईश्वरा गणशमा सुंदरा
Sai शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः समस्तलोका सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोका सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोका सुखिनो भवन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् अशीमवहु वहिष्ठेमस्ति उष्टास्ति उष्टाहमये यतशाय वहिष्ठायशि नमो तस्सा भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्स बुद्धं शरणं गच्छामि धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि संघं शरणं गच्छामि श्मा इस्राएल अदोनाय एलोहेनु अदोनाय एहा अदोनाय एहा अदोनाय एहा Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. La ilaha illallah, Allah, Allah. 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 साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति 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 परमं पवित्रं भावाविभूति परमं विचित्रं लीलाविभूति आत्मैष्टार्थमोक्षप्रदानं भावाविभूतिम् इदमाश्रयामि. Sacred, holy and supreme is
Sai Ram, Thought for the Week. What is education? It is of two types. The first type is collection of facts and knowledge about the external world and sharing them with students. The second type is educare. Educare involves the deep understanding of the knowledge that springs from within and imparting it to students. But today's education gives the students knowledge only about the external world. Only culture or refinement can develop good personality, and not this type of education. So, both education and culture are important. Today's education is devoid of culture and is like a counterfeit coin. Even a beggar does not accept a counterfeit coin. Then, how can experienced and intelligent people accept such education? So, to satisfy everyone, we must develop educare. Education without refinement is like a dark room. Only bats can live in dark rooms. Such rooms are filthy. So, by pursuing such education devoid of culture, our hearts have become dark rooms, and hence many animal qualities find their way into it. Education without culture is like a kite with a broken string. No one knows where it will fall and what damage it will cause to others. Therefore, such education does not benefit anyone. Only if education is blended with culture, it will shine forth as true education. What is culture? It is the cultivation of discrimination between good and evil, sin and merit, and truth and untruth that we experience in our daily life. It is also removal of one's evil thoughts, feelings, and qualities, and cultivation of good thoughts, feelings, and good qualities. Not only this, culture makes one broad-minded by getting rid of one's narrow-mindedness. Satyasai Speaks, Volume 34, 2001.